There comes a time in every life when silence becomes stronger than words, when stillness carries more weight than confrontation, when the quiet act of removing yourself from what diminishes your soul is the loudest declaration you will ever make. You have carried burdens that were never yours to bear, carried people who had no intention of walking with you, carried relationships that drained your strength like a thief stealing oil from your lamp, and you have whispered to yourself late at night, "Maybe if I explain one more time they'll understand. Maybe if I give one more chance they'll change. Maybe if I hold on tighter the cracks won't split open." But my beloved, hear me when I say, sometimes God does not call you to repair what was never meant to hold you. Sometimes He does not ask you to explain, defend, or negotiate. Sometimes He calls you simply to cut them off silently and step into the destiny He has written for you before the foundation of the earth. There is a holy power in silence, a strength so steady it does not need an announcement. When you cut someone off silently, you are not acting out of cruelty, but of courage. You are not moving from bitterness, but from clarity. Silence becomes the language of freedom when you recognize that no apology can fix what God Himself has told you to release. For too long you may have mistaken loyalty for love, sacrifice for connection, endurance for wisdom. But if God is stirring your spirit to move away, then you must trust His whisper more than your longing. Destiny does not ask your permission, it requires your obedience. Too many of us wait for others to validate our decisions before we walk away. We think closure will come from their lips, when in truth closure comes when your spirit says, "Enough." Some people are not meant to walk into the next season with you, no matter how much you care for them. Their assignment in your story has ended, and when you cling to expired chapters, you forfeit the new pages God is ready to write. The tree does not apologize when it sheds its leaves, the river does not explain why it keeps flowing, and the sun does not ask permission to rise. And yet we, created in God's divine image, feel the need to justify to broken people why we are choosing to heal. No, my dear one, your healing does not need a witness. Your peace does not require their applause. Cut them off silently, and let your silence sing the hymn of your freedom. Some of the most dangerous prisons have no iron bars or locked gates. They are built from words, from manipulation, from guilt, from the constant pull of people who want you small, so they can remain comfortable. They call it love, but it is control. They call it friendship, but it is dependence. They call it loyalty, but it is a leash. And you, radiant child of God, have been dimming yourself to make them feel safe. You have been holding back your destiny to keep them from feeling threatened. But God did not craft your spirit for chains. He did not mold your soul to be molded by their fear. He destined you for light, for fullness, for abundance. And when you refuse to cut them off, you refuse the very abundance He promised. Do not think for a moment that silence is weakness. Silence is strategy. When you stop explaining yourself, you stop feeding arguments that were never meant to end. When you stop answering, you stop giving energy to people who only want to drain you. When you stop reaching back, you stop delaying the forward motion God has already set in motion. Sometimes the most powerful word you will ever speak is the one you never say. Sometimes the most resounding no is the sound of your footsteps moving away. There will be guilt at first. That is the cost of freedom. The enemy will whisper that you are cruel, that you are selfish, that you owe them more chances, more explanations, more of your time. But remember this: every minute you spend defending your decision is a minute stolen from the destiny God is calling you toward. When God says, "Move," your only response must be to move. You cannot stay in a burning house and expect to survive, because you are afraid to hurt someone's feelings by leaving. Destiny does not negotiate with dysfunction. Destiny demands departure. You may wonder why it must be silent. Why not confront? Why not argue? Why not make them understand? Because the ones God is asking you to release are not wired to understand. They hear only what keeps them comfortable. They see only what feeds their pride. To speak to them is to invite them to weave new chains with their words. To argue with them is to let them sow new seeds of doubt. Your silence, however, closes the door. Your silence says, "No more," without giving them an opening to bargain. Your silence says, "This chapter has ended," without leaving blank spaces for them to scribble their justifications. Your silence is a shield, a sanctuary, a song of liberation. Cutting them off silently does not mean you stop loving. It means you love yourself enough to stop being consumed. It means you love God enough to choose His plan over their approval. It means you love your future enough to protect it from those who would poison it. Love does not always mean proximity. Sometimes love is expressed through distance, through letting go, through blessing from afar. And do not confuse forgiveness with reunion. You can forgive and never return. You can bless them and never see them again. You can pray for them and never answer their call. That is not cruelty. That is wisdom. Think of Abraham, called to leave his homeland, his father's house, his familiar surroundings. God told him, "Go to the land I will show you." He did not take everyone with him. He could not. Destiny required a departure. Think of Ruth, who chose to leave her past behind to walk with Naomi toward a new life. She cut off what no longer held her future. Think of Jesus himself, who loved the multitudes but was never bound to them, who chose silence in the face of false accusations because his destiny was greater than their opinions. Over and over again, the Word teaches us that stepping into destiny requires releasing attachments. The question is, will you be brave enough to let go without looking back? You have carried people into your tomorrow, who were only assigned to your yesterday. You have fed relationships with your time, your energy, your prayers, even when God Himself has told you their season is over. And still you ask, "But what if they need me?" Beloved, understand this. God is their Savior, not you. You are not called to be their anchor when God is calling you to fly. You are not called to sacrifice your growth so they can stay comfortable in their stagnation. When you cut them off, you do not leave them hopeless. You place them back into the hands of the one who can do what you never could. The pain of release is real, but so is the promise. Every ending is the seed of a beginning. When you cut them off silently, space is created for God to fill. When you step away from what drains you, you step toward what sustains you. Destiny has no room for dead weight. The future God has prepared cannot be built on fractured foundations, and the peace you will discover when you finally obey will be greater than the pain of letting go. For what is waiting for you is not small, not fragile, not temporary. It is eternal. It is purposeful. It is the very reason you were born. Do not let fear deceive you into thinking you are losing something. You are not losing. You are being positioned. You are being shifted into the place where your gifts will flourish, where your spirit will expand, where your life will finally align with the blueprint God wrote for you. Some doors must close so that others can open. Some people must walk away so that others can arrive. Some silences must be kept so that your spirit can hear God clearly. And when you look back years from now, you will not regret the silence. You will not regret the distance. You will not regret the separation. You will only regret the moments you delayed, the moments you stayed too long, the moments you ignored the whisper of God. So today I urge you, with the strength of every ancestor who refused chains, with the courage of every prophet who walked alone, with the faith of every soul who trusted God more than comfort, cut them off silently. Let your silence be your song. Let your obedience be your offering. Let your departure be your declaration that you will no longer live beneath the destiny God has written for you. And when you step into that destiny, step boldly, step fully, step without apology. Because the world does not need you half alive, half dreaming, half courageous. The world needs the fullness of who you are, the fire of your spirit, the glory of your obedience. And when you step into that fullness, you will discover that the silence you once feared was never emptiness at all. It was the sound of God making room for your destiny. And when you begin to walk into the new chapter God has been whispering to your spirit, you will feel the trembling of your own soul. You will hear the echoes of old voices calling you back, voices that once held you in their grip, voices that wrapped themselves around your identity, until you could no longer tell where they ended and you began. But listen, those voices are only echoes. They have no power except the power you give them. Do not be fooled by their familiarity. Just because you have carried them for so long, does not mean they belong in the weight of your destiny. The soul often confuses comfort with covenant, but not every comfortable voice is a covenant from God. Some voices are remnants of old chains disguised as friends, as lovers, as companions. And when God calls you forward, He is not asking for your comfort, He is commanding your freedom. Freedom rarely comes dressed in ease. Freedom often feels like loss. It feels like standing in the middle of a room you once knew, now emptied of everything familiar, everything secure. Freedom feels like silence where there was once noise, stillness where there was once chaos. But in that silence the seeds of destiny begin to grow. You will not always hear the trumpet blast of angels announcing your next step. More often you will feel a stillness, a quiet nudging, a subtle knowing that it is time. And if you resist, if you cling to the familiar out of fear, you risk forfeiting the promise. Some of you have been circling the same mountain for years, praying for God to move the obstacles, yet the truth is this: the mountain is the person you refuse to release, the relationship you refuse to end, the chain you refuse to break. Destiny cannot be entered holding hands with disobedience. Oh, the courage it takes to walk away without a word, to move forward without a farewell. People will misunderstand you, they will mislabel you, they will paint you as cold, ungrateful, distant. Let them weave their stories. Because your story is not being written by their ink. Your life is authored by God Himself, and He does not consult them when He crafts your destiny. Do not waste your breath trying to correct their perception. It is not your duty to educate those who are determined not to see you clearly. The silence of your departure will speak louder than any explanation ever could, and in the stillness, heaven itself will applaud. I want you to imagine for a moment the freedom that awaits you on the other side of obedience. Imagine waking up and no longer shrinking yourself to fit someone else's expectations. Imagine speaking without rehearsing how it will land in their fragile ego. Imagine dreaming without fear that your vision will intimidate them. Imagine laughing and not looking over your shoulder to see if your joy offends. That is the life God desires for you, unapologetic, unshaken, unbound. And yet too many of us keep living in cages with the door wide open, too afraid of the open sky, too afraid of the unknown air. We tell ourselves the cage is safe, that at least we know the pattern of the bars, at least we know the sound of the lock. But God is calling you to soar, and if you do not cut them off silently, you will never have the strength to spread your wings. Some of you have prayed for God to enlarge your territory, but you are unwilling to release the people who are poisoning your soil. You cannot plant new seeds in ground that is already corrupted. You cannot ask God to rain blessings on fields overrun with weeds you refuse to uproot. The very act of cutting off silently is not cruelty, it is cultivation, it is the clearing of the soil, the tilling of the earth, the preparation for the harvest. Every farmer knows that pruning is painful but necessary. Every gardener understands that dead branches steal life from the whole. And every soul must one day learn that you cannot carry decay into destiny. If you want to grow, you must cut. If you want to thrive, you must release. If you want to step into the promise, you must silence the noise that stands in its way. And do not think for a moment that you will walk alone when you choose this path. You may leave people behind, but you will never leave God behind. His presence will walk with you in the silence. His Spirit will whisper to you in the stillness. His angels will surround you when you take the step others are too afraid to take. Do not mistake solitude for abandonment. The very moments when it feels like no one understands are often the moments when heaven is closest, when your ears are being tuned to hear God more clearly than ever before. He strips away the distractions so His voice can rise above the noise. And though it feels like loss, it is really alignment. You will not always know where the next step leads. Destiny rarely comes with a map. God does not hand you a blueprint of every turn, every season, every face you will meet along the way. He simply says, "Trust me, obey me, follow me." And when you cut them off silently, you are telling God, "I trust you more than my comfort. I trust you more than my fear. I trust you more than the approval of men." That kind of trust shakes heaven. That kind of trust unlocks doors. That kind of trust moves mountains. Do not underestimate what your obedience will do, for it is not only your life being shifted, it is every generation connected to your name. The children you have not yet birthed will thank you for the chains you broke. The family you have not yet seen will rejoice because you chose to walk in freedom. The legacy you will leave will shine brighter because you chose silence instead of explanation, obedience instead of delay. Every step you take away from dysfunction is a step your children will not have to take. Every tie you sever is a tie that will not strangle your lineage. Do you see the weight of what is in your hands? This is not about a single relationship, a single friendship, a single tie. This is about destiny written in eternal ink. This is about God's plan for generations yet unborn. And if you do not cut them off now, you risk passing down chains instead of crowns. I know it hurts. I know the silence feels like death. But resurrection never comes without a grave. There is a dying that must happen before new life can bloom. And when you allow something to die in your life that God has already declared dead, you make room for the resurrection of your purpose, your passion, your power. So do not fear the death of what is expired. Do not mourn what God has already buried. Stand in the silence with courage, and watch how quickly the new life springs forth. You will walk lighter, you will laugh louder, you will dream bigger, you will pray with more fire, you will love with more freedom. You will see yourself not as they once labeled you, but as God has always known you. And when you finally step into that place, you will look back not with regret, but with gratitude. Gratitude that you were brave enough to obey, strong enough to release, wise enough to choose silence over explanation. Gratitude that you finally believed you were worthy of more, that you finally honored the destiny God placed inside you. Gratitude that you chose life, abundance, freedom, destiny. So let today be the day you make the choice. Let today be the day you stop delaying, stop explaining, stop excusing. Let today be the day you cut them off silently, and step boldly into God's destiny for you. The world is waiting for your light, heaven is cheering for your obedience, and God Himself is holding out His hand, ready to lead you into the land He has promised. Step out of the cage, step into the sky, step into the destiny that has always been yours. And when you take that first step away from what you have released, you may feel the earth beneath your feet tremble. You may feel a loneliness that clings to your chest, whispering to you that perhaps you made a mistake, that perhaps you should have stayed where you were, that perhaps silence was too heavy of a choice. But I tell you that trembling is not weakness. It is the sound of chains breaking. It is the sound of heaven shifting on your behalf. It is the sound of God clearing the path for your destiny. Every step forward will feel foreign at first, for you are stepping on ground you have never walked before. That is the very nature of destiny. It leads you where you have not yet been. It takes you where your old company could not go. It stretches you beyond the borders of your fear. You must not allow the ache of absence to pull you back. Too often people return to what breaks them because they mistake absence for love. They believe that because they missed the presence of the familiar must have been right. But longing is not proof of purpose. Missing someone does not mean they belonged in your destiny. Hunger will make a man crave poison if it is the only thing in reach. Your spirit may ache for what you cut off, but that ache is not always a signal to return. It is sometimes simply the body learning to live without what was slowly killing it. Do not confuse detox with destiny. Sometimes your heart must cleanse itself of old attachments, and the pain of withdrawal is not a sign of loss, but a sign of healing. When you cut them off silently, you will notice that your prayers sound different. No longer weighted down by explanations, no longer crowded by confusion, your prayers will rise more freely. They will carry the sound of surrender, the sound of clarity, the sound of faith untethered. And you will hear God more clearly too, because the voices that once competed for your attention will no longer drown him out. He has been speaking all along, but the noise of those you carried blocked his whispers. In your silence you create space for his voice. In your letting go you make room for his leading, and you will find that the voice of God is not always thunder and lightning. Sometimes it is a whisper so gentle you must lean your whole soul toward him to hear it. That whisper will guide you better than the shouts of those you left behind. Some will try to return when they notice your silence. They will reach out not because they love you, but because they feel the absence of the control they once had. They will mask their return with apologies, with promises, with sweetened words dipped in guilt. But you must remember why you cut them off in the first place. Silence is not to be broken with the same voice that once broke you. Do not reopen a door that God himself has closed. You cannot walk into your destiny with one foot in yesterday's grave. Stand firm. Let your silence remain sacred. For the moment you compromise, the moment you let them weave their words back around you, you delay the promise that is already unfolding. Think of how God has always required separation before elevation. Moses had to leave the palace to hear the burning bush. David had to walk away from the fields of shepherding to step into the throne room. Esther had to leave her home to step into the palace where destiny awaited. Even Jesus himself, after being baptized, was led into the wilderness, separated, silent, alone, before the fullness of his ministry began. Over and over the pattern is the same: separation, then revelation; silence, then destiny. Do not resist the pattern, yield to it, trust it. For the silence that feels like abandonment is in truth preparation. God is doing his deepest work in the moments where you feel most alone. And as you grow accustomed to your new solitude, you will find that it is not empty, it is fertile. In the quiet, your gifts will awaken. In the stillness, your creativity will flow. In the distance from those who drained you, your energy will return. Slowly, almost without you noticing, the things you thought were lost will begin to bloom again. Your laughter will find its way back to your lips. Your dreams will no longer be clouded by doubt. Your strength will no longer leak through cracks of manipulation. You will feel whole again. And wholeness is a dangerous thing to those who once fed off your brokenness. They will not know what to do with the version of you that no longer needs them. And that is the proof that you were right to let go. Do not shrink back into old patterns for the sake of familiar company. You were not born to fit where you no longer belong. You are not called to dim your fire so that others can feel comfortable in the shadows. If your light blinds them, let them turn away. If your fire burns them, let them step aside. You are not responsible for their comfort. You are responsible for your calling, and your calling will never demand that you stay small. God did not create you in his image for you to bow to anyone else's insecurity. Your destiny is not a negotiation. It is a declaration written in eternal ink. And to step into it fully, you must keep moving forward. Even when the silence feels heavy, even when the loneliness feels sharp, even when the fear whispers louder than your faith, hold on to the truth that your silence is not emptiness. It is alignment. It is not rejection. It is redirection. It is not abandonment. It is advancement. You are not losing. You are being lifted. Every tie you cut is a weight removed from your wings. Every step you take forward is a testimony of trust. And every tear you cry in the silence waters the soil of your future. Do not despise those tears. They are holy. They are cleansing. They are proof that your heart is alive, that your soul is awakening, that your spirit is aligning with God's will. One day you will look back on those tears not as weakness, but as seeds that birthed your strength. So walk, child of God. Walk through the silence. Walk through the ache. Walk through the unknown. Walk with your head lifted and your heart steady. For on the other side of this journey is a destiny so beautiful, it will make every cut worth it, every silence holy, every step sacred. Trust that God's hand is guiding you. Trust that His heart is holding you. Trust that His plan is unfolding even when your eyes cannot see it. And when you arrive, and you will arrive, you will know that it was never really about who you cut off, but about who you became in the cutting, about who you discovered in the silence, about who you allowed God to shape you into as you stepped into the fullness of His promise. And then, my dear one, your life will not only be free, it will be destiny fulfilled. And as you walk further into the land of silence and obedience, you will begin to feel the air change. At first it may feel strange, like stepping into a room where the furniture has been moved, where the shadows are unfamiliar, where the light falls in places you have not noticed before. But this strangeness is not danger, it is discovery. You are discovering yourself in ways you never could while you were tangled in the hands of those who drained you. You are discovering strength you did not know you carried, patience you did not know you possessed, clarity that had long been muffled by their noise. The silence becomes a mirror, and in it you begin to see not the reflection of who they told you that you were, but the truth of who God has always said you are. For so long you let their words clothe you, like garments too tight for your soul, garments stitched with lies and half-truths meant to keep you small. They told you that you were not enough, that you were too much, that you were too loud, too quiet, too bold, too fragile. And you wore those garments because you did not want to offend, because you thought love meant fitting into their patterns. But now, in the silence, those garments begin to fall away. Piece by piece, thread by thread, you are stripped of their labels and wrapped in God's truth. You are enough. You are chosen. You are called. You are destined. You are His beloved. And there is nothing small about that. And once you know who you are in Him, you cannot go back to who they wanted you to be. The journey into destiny is not a return. It is an emergence. It is not about finding what was lost, but about becoming what was hidden. You will realize that God never meant for you to waste years convincing someone to value you, to prove to them that your love was pure, to beg them to stay. No, He meant for you to walk in such certainty of your worth that anyone who cannot honor it disqualifies themselves from your presence. He meant for you to rise so fully into your identity that you no longer need to explain why you walked away, because your flourishing becomes its own explanation. Your joy becomes your testimony. Your peace becomes your evidence. Your growth becomes the sermon you never preached, but everyone can hear. And there will come a day when those you cut off will see you again. Not in person perhaps, but in glimpses of your life, in the whispers of your success, in the echoes of your laughter. They will see you shining without them, thriving without their presence, standing tall without their support. And that vision will speak to them louder than any words ever could. Do not seek this moment for revenge. Do not look back to gloat or prove a point. Let it be what it is, the fruit of obedience. For when you walk in God's destiny, your very existence becomes proof of His faithfulness. Your silence will speak volumes. Your flourishing will silence every accusation. Your peace will answer every lie. It is not easy to walk away quietly. Everything in your flesh will want to shout, to justify, to demand recognition for your pain. But you must remember, silence is not about them. It is about you. Silence is the soil where God will plant the seeds of your destiny. If you fill the ground with noise, the seeds cannot take root. If you water the soil with endless explanations, you drown the very promise God is trying to grow. Your silence is sacred space. Protect it. Guard it like treasure. Honor it as holy. You will find that in this silence God will begin to surround you with new voices. Not the old ones that tore you down, but voices that lift you higher, voices that remind you of your worth, voices that speak life instead of death. He will place people in your path